The complex labyrinths of Mughal history have always fascinated historians. The scholars of Mughal history today have a wide array of primary and secondary sources to work on. These sources range from the stupendous works of the Turco-Afghan and Mughal court historians of medieval India to the groundbreaking 20th century scholarships that have redefined historical studies. Historiography, or the evolution of history writing in medieval India, has emerged as an independent area of scholarship. The emergence of structured and systematic history writing in both Indian and Islamic culture is considered to be a late phenomenon. Kalhana's Rajatarangini, written in the middle of the 12th century, the first proper Indian historical work, is considered to have little influence on Indo-Islamic historiography. Mughal historiography has strong and undeniable links with larger traditions of Islamic history writing, both Persian and Arabic. History written in Arabic in the Indian context has been rather sparse and has been dominated by the impressive work of al-Biruni. In fact, medieval historiography is dominated by an enormous range of Persian texts. Persian historiography, with its own strong writing tradition, was breaking away from the Isnad system, or the chain of narrators employed by the Arab historians. Medieval Indian historiography, before the emergence of the Mughals, was dominated by the historians of the Delhi Sultanate. The early historians of this period laid down the ground for the formidable tradition of Indo-Persian historiography. Historians like Hasan Nizami, Minhajus Siraj, and even the poet Amir Khusru were the pioneers. But the person who broke fresh ground in the historiography of India was Ziauddin Barni. Often wrongly criticized for looking at history from the framework of Islamic theology, Barni's approach was largely analytical. In fact, Barni, in one of his works, has strongly argued against the forced imposition of Shariat, or Islamic law. The terrain of history writing becomes more exciting and even more contentious in the Mughal era, and the range of sources more diverse.
The period of Mughal history, roughly from 1526 to 1856, or rather 1857 if we take the fall of Bahadur Shah Zafar, constitutes the most important period of Indian history for various reasons. Apart from the political unification of India, there were also economic and other measures which the Mughal had taken during this period. You look at the sources for the study of this period, one might say the glorious period of our history, in architecture, in sculpture, in painting, in economic measures, in all its aspects of life. We would see the principal source written in the Persian language with some Arabic inscriptions as well for the study of this period. This is not the only language source of the Mughal period. We have other Indian language sources. We have European languages sources. Today we shall see very briefly the nature of the Persian language sources, which we call in brief Persian sources, for this period. The Persian sources, from its characteristics, its type of writings, and the contents, could be divided in several aspects or several types, if one may say so. The first one we may call the autobiography of the Mughal emperors. The two are quite clear. autobiography written by Babur in Turkish language, then Tuzuki Jahangiri by Jahangir in Persian language. There is also one of Humayun called Humayun Nama, but on that there are controversies. It is stated that he did not write, he dictated. Some others said that he didn't even dictate. The fourth one was written by Gulbadan Begum, sister of Humayun. She was of course not the emperor, but she wrote from the harem and should be interesting. We'll come back to that. The second type is the most important one, not only in number but also in content. The court histories written by various historians of the court at the command of the emperor, sometimes at the command of the nobles also. The third type are those which are written by some other people, including two Hindus, which I will refer in due time. The fourth one, the Farmans, the Parwanas, the orders of the Mughal emperors, the provincial governors, and the Diwans, and so on and so forth. And then we have the fifth one, the letters of Aurangzeb. There are many, more than 25. And the last one we call inscriptions and coins. Most of these inscriptions are in Arabic, but they do tell us some of the important nature of the construction, for example, of masjid, of madrasa, of mausoleums, their period of construction, done by whom, who was the patron, and so on and so forth. The coins are most interesting because not only these are of finest quality, but they tell us the economic condition of the Mughal Empire.
The memoirs of the Mughal emperors have a tremendous influence on medieval historiography. These memoirs go beyond political history, taking us, every now and then, into the personal domain of the emperor. Transcending the physical domains of the emperor's palace, it takes the reader into the psychological domain of the mighty monarchs. We get rare glimpses of the emperor's mind, sometimes their innermost feelings and anxieties.
We come back to the autobiographies. Babur's autobiography, Bahadur Nama, first translated from Turkish by Abdur Rahim Khan Khanan during the time of Akbar in Persian. Then it was translated in English by Mrs. Beveridge in the 19th century.
Babur, who was a great influence on the historiography of Akbar by writing his own autobiography, where he gives a whole account of India, Ahwal-e Hindustan, concerning himself not only how much revenues were realized, but also with its fauna, flora, its architecture. It's devoting a 1.5 page to the prose of the sculptor of the Gwalior temples. So this was one tradition which the Mughal historians were to inherit.
Bahadur Nama is actually a political history, giving the struggle, the history of the struggle of Babur and how he got the throne, defeated the Afghans, defeated the Rajputs, etc. But in that, one finds also other Babur, his appreciation of the house of Mansingh, for example, along with some other temples there, his enjoyment of wine in the evening along with his companions. Significantly, the 17 pages of Bahadur Nama on Ajodhya are missing. They are missing also from the Persian sources, which would mean that these pages are missing when Humayun was coming back from Persia overland.
Humayun, early in life, was drawn into a bitter rivalry with his brother Kamran. He lost his Indian territories to the Afghan leader Sher Shah Suri, but managed to regain them with the help of the Shah of Persia. After living 15 years in Persia, he came back to Delhi with a large retinue of Persian nobles. The Central Asian origin of the dynasty was now largely overshadowed by the Persian influence on court culture, art, architecture, language, and literature.
Humayun Nama, according to some, was dictated by Humayun to Johor Aftabachi, one of his servants or slaves. This seems to be a bit controversial because of the fact that although he had used the word I did not, etc., but it seems that it is written by somebody else, not by Humayun. This is also a political history. Gulbadan Begum's Humayun Nama, written from the harem, should have been very interesting. Unfortunately, there are chronological problems. She also wrote about what is happening in the political sphere, etc., etc. It's that way, it does not give the life of the harem very much.
The greatest of the Mughal emperors, Akbar, the son of Humayun, had not ventured into writing an autobiography. Jahangir, the son of Akbar, continued the tradition of writing the imperial memoir. The accounts of the first 12 years, when completed, were bound and presented to officers. The first person to get a copy was Prince Khurram, the future Emperor Shah Jahan. In the 17th year of Jahangir's reign, when the emperor became ill and was growing weaker, the task of completing the book was given to Mutamad Khan, a senior imperial officer.
When it comes to Jahangir's period, the tradition that he follows both the traditions, he is writing as his grandfather, great-grandfather Babar did, Tuzuke Jahangiri or Jahangir Nama, his own memoirs, where he is very accurate. He very clearly says, I got Abul Fazl murdered. There is an important thing about Mughal historiography that you don't conceal anything. You are frank. Like Babar, he says, I was afraid, so I didn't attack. So Jahangir says, I was against Abul Fazl, so I got him murdered.
Tuzuki Jahangiri is perhaps the most interesting in the sense that Jahangir had written particularly about justice, how he had hung the golden chain of justice from his palace so that anybody can come and ring it up and ask for justice. He was very particular. And then he had given his own views on various things, fruits and flowers and so on and so forth. He said mango is the best fruit in the world, things like that. What is interesting is that according to legend, Jahangir was supposed to marry Nur Jahan and killed Sheraf Khan for this. But in the autobiography of Jahangir, there is no mention of Nur Jahan till at a very late stage. There is no mention of the marriage also. So one might ask, as Mohibul Hasan has asked in a very good article, that the whole thing is merely a legend and nothing but.
So, while we come to official Mughal historiography, in the beginning, Akbar did make an attempt to have Tarikh-e-Alafi written, which was beginning from the Islamic word and all other things, which up till now the tradition was that you write in praise of God, a hamd, then a naat in praise of the Prophet, and then come over to the caliphs, and then in one page or a little say chapter devoted on the history of the Islamic world, and then you come with what happens in India.
From the historiographical point of view, the most significant period was the rule of Akbar. This is the period when history writing, in methodology, form, and content, reached a new height. This was due to the contribution of an amazing personality, Akbar's court historian and ideologue Abul Fazl.
Among the court histories, the most important one is of course by two people, one by Abul Fazl and the other by Badauni during the reign of Akbar. Now Abul Fazl studied under his very liberal father Sheikh Mubarak, and Sheikh Mubarak was a very liberal. He was persecuted by the mullahs. He had to flee from one place to another till he was given shelter by Akbar himself. According to some, Abul Fazl was against the mullahs because of this reason. Abul Fazl's entire philosophy of history rests obviously on the views of Akbar on two grounds. One is what he calls sulh-i-kul, that is toleration to all religions. And the second is far more important and which created problem, is he stated very clearly reason and not faith is the basis of religion. Now Abul Fazl became Mansabdar, rose very highly. In 1602 he was a 5,000 Zat Mansabdar, which is a very high post in those days. He was sent to create some kind of understanding with other people. On the way he was killed by the Bundela chief on the order of Selim, Prince Selim, later Jahangir. He was getting jealous that Abul Fazl was getting all the honors and all the privileges and all the favors of Akbar.
A stupendous work of medieval history writing, Abul Fazl's Akbarnama is virtually a ready reference to Akbar's India. An impeccably written political and administrative history, it encompasses a wide domain that historians preceding him had never dared to tread.
Abul Fazl's Akbarnama is a straightway political history. He had used the facts from the archives, but he said that he had checked the facts. And how did he check those facts? That also he had given.
And there is an interesting thing in Abul Fazl that he identifies. His purpose is that, or he has an identification. If you want to know about history, you must learn about the reign of Akbar. And if you wish to know the reign of Akbar, how he governed, what was really important, then you must understand his India. History cannot be separated from Akbar, and Akbar cannot be separated. There is an identification between Akbar and his India right from the day one, right from the beginning, not from the beginning of the Mughal Empire. So these two identifications are very clear in Abul Fazl. Then he says he is not writing, he also is a very great elitist like Barney. He says he is writing history not for the present generation. What he in fact says is, I am writing the account of this empire for the benefit of the intellectuals of the future generation. That's something very important. It's not every mind which can understand it, only the future generations, intellectuals who can understand it. That's why I call it very elitist.
Even within the boundaries set by medieval historiography, and the fact that he was a court historian on the imperial payroll, Abul Fazl managed to break away from the hagiographic or the idealized biographic mold. He introduced analytical techniques into history writing and also created a theoretical framework for the functioning of the Mughal state.
In this Akbarnama, he had followed two different methods of historiography. He started from Adam and went up to Akbar, which is of one stage. In this, he had taken the reign of each person, each king, as one unit and continued till the arrival of Akbar. In the reign of Akbar, so far as the reign of Akbar was concerned, Abul Fazl took 1 year as one unit and continued to do so. In the middle of the unit, if some other event occurs, he would then relate that event in full and come back again to the unit. So there is a certain method of historiography, one might say of history writing in Abul Fazl's writings.
As far as Akbarnama we follow, there is first a theory of a state which he enunciates or he comes up with. He imagines that, or he rather argues that there is a sort of a social contract between the ruler and the ruled. Much before Hobbes, he comes up with that, but his social contract is of a different nature. The contract is that the ruler is to provide peace and protection and peace and justice. And the other thing is that ruler is a divine agency, not has a divine right to rule, but he is a divine agency. He has a direct relationship, taking from the illuminist, he says, he receives his wisdom or knowledge, or rather he is a recipient of the light of God, creator. The God also doesn't belong to a particular religion, he's just a creator. Is straight directly without any intermediary, a prophet or anyone else from that creator, and he is answerable to creator, not to the people. Therefore, unlike Hobbes, this is a different sort of a contract.
Ain-e-Akbari, often considered a separate text, was actually the third or the final book of Akbarnama. The book was meant to be an imperial gazetteer that details the organization of Akbar's court, administration, and army, the revenues and geography of his empire.
The second book of Abul Fazl, which is called Ain-e-Akbari, is perhaps the most important and is still being researched. Ain-e-Akbari, in 3 volumes, translated several times in English, contains the entire administrative structure of the Mughal Empire, including the palace officials and the officials of the harem, their organization, the economic details of skilled and unskilled workers, the prices, the land of the provinces, how much revenue comes, how many towns were there, how many villages were there, how many jamidars were there, how many arms or army these people had. All these are set down in 3 volumes, including a large number of names of the Mazhabdas.
Abul Fazl's Ain-e-Akbari nobody tried even or attempted to follow because perhaps it was so difficult. Here he gives you he first divides it into 2 sections. One which he says is concerned with this worldly side of the emperor, the other, the cultural or the otherworldly side of the emperor. In this worldly side, he further divides it into Manzilabadi, Sipahabadi and Mulkabadi, concerning the imperial administration, concerning the administration of army, and concerning the provinces. And the most important thing here that he gives you the figures for everything: prices, wages, yields, land revenue rates, all in statistical, this is statistical data given in tabular form, in the form of tables, rows and columns, not just written like this. And he is so much ahead of his time while he is doing that while Blockman in 1860s edited Ain-e-Akbari for the first time, he dispensed with this tabular representation and did it like that. His concern that this should remain very accurate is reflected by the fact that he writes each and every figure in longhand, not in numerals, nor in Rakam notations. Because if it is written in the longhand, even if it is written in numbers, if 1 digit is lost, the whole figure loses its importance. Lakhs become 10,000s. But if it is written in longhand, then so many crores, so many lakhs, so many thousands, so many hundreds, if 1 figure is gone, even then the rest remains quite accurate. So he is concerned that there will be copies, and in copying, if it is in numbers, this will be lost. It is generally said, or there is an allegation against Abul Fazl, that he was a court historian, he was a flatterer, he wanted to please Akbar, all those sort of things. But only those who have read his work, Akbarnama, not very seriously or not reading in between the lines, only they can say things of the sort. Abul Fazl has two ways, or rather three ways, of criticizing his own emperor or actions of his own emperor, who is his hero, no doubt, because he is the upholder of the policy of tolerance, the Sulh-e-Kul. And he has a total commitment to reason, not to orthodoxy or theocracy. Therefore, he is his ideal. But at certain places, he has no qualms in criticizing Akbar very seriously, such as while Akbar didn't come over to lead the campaign against Bengal and let Munim Khan do it, because there was a superstition that most of the rulers, sultans, lost their empire in Bengal. And what hurt Abul Fazl perhaps was the idea that there is this superstition that Akbar is not going.
In spite of being a court historian, Abul Fazl did not allow his writing to degenerate into mere panegyric. His critical faculty, as we have seen, is always at work. Moreover, his interest in geography, culture, and ways of life of the emperor, as well as the ordinary Indian, also make his work unique. In this, he probably surpasses Badayuni, the other great Mughal court historian, whom we are going to discuss in our next program.
the